So your problem is thinning and fatting shots. That's a contact issue. And whilst you may think you've tried everything, in this video I'm going to share with you some ideas that will really help you, including how the HackMotion wrist sensor and the associated drills inside the app will help you to hit the ball better than you ever thought possible. Contrary to popular belief, thinning the ball where you hit the ball high and top it somewhat, and fatting the ball where you hit the ground before the ball prematurely are actually the same problem manifesting themselves in different outcomes. Let me elaborate. If I go ahead and hit this shot, you'll see when I use the HackMotion wrist sensor on my wrist when I hit this ball, you're going to notice some data that's going to be very telling. That ball was thin. That was struck very thin or very high on the club, and I'm going to get the feedback there at impact that my wrist was too extended. What does that mean? Well, simply put, that means that when I hit the ball there, I had my lead wrist too much extended, too much in this condition here. And why does that matter? Well, what that does, the moment that the lead wrist goes into extension prematurely before impact, it's going to have the effect of pulling the club head up away from the ground. That shortens the swing arc, shortens the radius of the swing, and effectively makes you prone to thinning the golf ball. So if I hit with the club head and the shaft overtaking my lead arm before impact, I'm going to show as having too much extension in this lead wrist. And I'm going to hit that shot really thin, really hard contact actually on the club face. Not a pleasant sensation at all. Relatively straight shot, relatively functional from a directional point of view, but very, very short. That ball's gone 116 yards, and this is a 6-iron. That's probably 50 yards short of where I could hit this club. Again, looking at the HackMotion data, I can tell very quickly where I'm deficient. Equally, if you're prone to hitting the ground before the ball, fat shots, that can also be caused by poor wrist conditions. The club head and the shaft overtaking the lead arm before impact makes the golf swing wider than it should be prematurely. It makes the arc of the swing and the arc of the club head too wide, and that makes you prone to hitting the ground before the ball. Again, the radius of the swing gets too wide too soon, and you're prone to hitting behind the ball. So the same issue of losing the wrist angles in the downswing is the root cause of hitting the ball fat and hitting the ball thin. The only difference is one of them you actually strike the ground, and in the other one, because you get so scared of hitting the ground or so tired of hitting the ground, you extend the lead wrist a little bit faster. You probably start bending your lead elbow, the chicken wing, which also helps to raise the club away from the ground, and you end up, rather than fatting the ball, you end up hitting it thin or even topping it. That would be a very extreme example. If I go ahead and throw these wrist angles out prematurely, you're going to notice in the HackMotion app again, too much extension as I hit the ball, and that one was fat. That one, I hit the ground a good number of inches there behind the ball. Completely non-functional, 100-yard 6-iron. Once again, too much extension in my lead wrist. So what I should do when I practice is I should look to have the hands more forward when I hit the ball. That would be lead wrist flexion. So extension would be the cupping of the wrist in this direction. Flexion would be the opposite. And if I was able to keep my lead wrist flexed when I hit the ball, I'd be able to deliver the shaft lean that I'm looking for, and I would be able to hit the ball first and then the divot second. That's what this would look like. Immediately a better quality of strike. A much longer shot. That ball's gone 174 yards. 174 yards. That's almost 60 yards longer than those shots I was hitting with the extended lead wrist. And when you look at the data, I've immediately been able to rectify those wrist angles that are associated directly with the thinning and the fatting of the shots that you're experiencing. If you really want to improve your ball striking better than you ever thought possible, understanding how your wrists work is absolutely critical. The way the wrists work affect the delivery of this club, and the delivery of this club into impact affect how the balls are going to fly. There's a high push draw there, 174 yard 6 iron, one adjustment making the wrist angles better at impact. And having completed a selection of shots there, HackMotion now has enough data on my swing to recommend the appropriate drill to try to improve my ball striking. Clearly on those first 3 shots that I hit, I had an extended lead wrist. So it tells me at impact where my main issue is. I'm too extended, and it shows me that the position I'd look for and want to try to achieve. I managed to do that in that last shot I hit, and the drills that HackMotion will prescribe for you will teach you how to do that as well. You could have issues in other parts of your swing. You could be getting the wrist angles wrong in the takeaway, and also at the top of the golf swing is quite a common one. But in this particular issue, topping and fatting is often caused by those wrist angles coming out prematurely in the downswing. So if I click on impact, it's going to make the recommendation here that I work on the casting drill. So let's get into that. How could you improve your wrist angles specifically using this app and this training aid in order to teach you the correct wrist angles in the downswing and at impact? So as I work through this drill, the first thing I'm going to need to do is take my setup position, and the app's going to recognize when I'm standing in the correct position at setup. Then it's going to tell me to go to the top. It's going to know when that is, and I'm going to get some feedback through the sensor, a vibration actually in my wrist, that I've got the club in the right spot. And then as I come down from this front view, I'm looking to maintain the wrist angle that I talked about previously, the flexion in the lead wrist. The position where my hands stay ahead of the club head and I deliver some shaft lean. That first rep was in range. That's the sort of feeling that I'm looking for in terms of training the correct wrist angles coming down into impact. Number 2, go to the top. I get the same feedback in the wrist. I get the feedback of the vibration. And if I keep these wrist angles coming into the ball, I'm going to get that green feedback again. It's capturing these reps and it's giving me feedback I'm doing it correctly. For most of you, when you try this, you'll find that once you get to the top, as you come down, you're more prone to throwing these wrist angles away and presenting this extended condition at impact. And again, immediately the app gives me feedback that I've lost those wrist angles prematurely and I'm casting the club. So the feeling as we come down from the top, keep the flex in the lead wrist, keep the extension in the back bend in the trail wrist, and you'll start to get a sense of exactly what you need to do. It truly is a game-changing training aid that will open your eyes to an area of the game that never really has been fully understood by most amateur golfers. Up until now, it's been practically impossible to really measure what's going on at the wrist level, but the wrists are really a huge part of improving your swing and understanding the secrets to club head control and club face delivery. There's your action, your reps that you need to start to practice, and then you'd gradually start to speed up and do more of these. You can also hit balls using this drill. Go to the top, hold the position, come down and try to deliver the wrist angles. You see there I lost it, I thinned that one slightly. I wasn't able to maintain the angles that I'm looking for. So you can actually take this from a slow motion movement where you get to feel what's going on at the wrist level, and then training the correct handle forward punch shot that you're looking for in the downswing. That one gave me the right sort of flight. That was a much better contact. Keeping the wrist angles intact. From the top, come down, punch the balls out there. Make sure I keep the handle forward. In addition to understanding good wrist angles, the final thing that I would recommend that you keep an eye on when it comes to improving whether you're thinning or fatting the ball versus hitting the ball solidly would be the location of your weight at impact. A huge factor in terms of where the club hits the ground or doesn't hit the ground would be to do with the location of your weight when you hit the ball. So if you have your weight too far back, you're more prone to hitting behind the ball. It's quite commonplace for someone with their weight too far back at impact to hit the ground behind the ball. That golfer would be susceptible to hitting fat shots, but they would also be very susceptible to hitting thin shots. Because once again, if the bottom of the swing arc is back behind the ball, by the time the club actually reaches the ball, it's beginning to ascend and move upwards. And that's the thin shot that is also associated with the fat shot. The same swing fault causes a different outcome. One of those swings would hit the ground before the ball and cause a fat shot. The next one, the golfer would miss the ground, but because their weight's back and the club's ascending, the wrist would begin to extend, club would raise, and they'd thin the ball. So pay attention to both wrist angles and weight location if you're looking to train better contact. Weight forward, handle forward would really be the way to think about this if you're trying to do this as well as you possibly can. Keeping the hands forward in the downswing, keep the wrist angles intact, train for better wrist angles, and you'll train better impact guaranteed. If you haven't tried HackMotion yet, I highly recommend you give this training aid a try. It truly is a game-changing training aid that will highlight areas of your swing that you never knew existed. Go ahead and check it out in the link, and I hope the video was helpful.